postcon on our chief secretary, to postcon upon the members of the executive council, our duly elected area representatives on this island. They brought people to laugh at them. They jeered. They clapped. They showed contempt for our duly elected officials here on our land. We cannot forget that, Tobago. We cannot forget that, Tobago. It must be etched in your memory all the way until 6 p.m. on Monday, the 28th of April. We ain't forgetting that. We're not forgetting they stood in Parliament and said, nobody lives there. We ain't forgetting that either. You cannot come now to ask a people who you deem to be nobody, who don't live here. You have no respect for us here to come now to ask us to vote for you. How long, brothers and sisters? Not long. Brothers and sisters, it's that time. This is the place. This is the space when we show respect, when we show honor, when we show that we love our own. Brothers and sisters, TPP people, stand with me. Let us welcome the political leader of the Tobago People's Party and Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Farley Chavez Agassi.
TPP family! Thank you very much. God blessings. Please have a seat. Good evening, Tobago. This is a good Sunday evening. And as any good Sunday evenings, it's perhaps a good time to start with scripture. Because the Bible says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. It says that there is a time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. Brothers and sisters, comrades all, I am here to officially declare that this is the time for political war and the Tobago's People's Party is ready. We are ready for the war. I am here because the struggle for a much more autonomous Tobago continues. I am here because in 2021, the people of Tobago gather as you have gathered this evening and resolutely said we were fed up with 21 years of being held in bondage in a barrel. We tossed the barrel aside, and I'm not sure if you are aware, but I was born on the 1st of July. And though I am not a believer in horoscopes, I am a Cancer. And that means I am the crab with the biggest gundi. And if you are aware of Tobago's culture, you will understand the pivotal role that crabs play in such a culture. But you see, for us in Tobago, we don't see our democracy as people rah-rahing. Democracy requires that our leaders sit and listen to every rah-rah and determine sense from nonsense and determine where the majority stands and stand with the majority. That is the democratic responsibility of every leader we elect. And so, given that some have said to you quite plainly and clearly that they are fed up with your rah-rah, it is time to put them out of their misery and employ two gentlemen who will listen to you for the next 5 years. I want this early on to express gratitude because this is a growing party. And you will understand how we got here. We started as black and we were transformed into the blazing blue of the skies. We started as black and in under a year there were turbulence, but the anchor holds. We started as black and very soon we found ourselves as independents. Because as Brother Barry pointed out, one man owned everything. And we decided to build an institution on the backs of Tobagonians that belong to all Tobagonians. And that we did. And then when that was not enough, they sent the agencies of state at us, but the anchor holds. The anchor holds. And so we, as a people who understand what it is to come from fishing communities, we very much understand that rough seas don't drunk talk a picnic. And so without regard for the rough seas we have faced, we remain resolute that the anchor holds. And we are so resolute because we know who is in our vessel. Because when Jesus is in the vessel, you could smile at any storm. And fearless. And we grew and we grew. To the point where we had our first screening for our first election as the Tobago People's Party. And our first screening, while those seek to compete, could only muster one person, no competition at all. We had an extremely competitive field for both Tobago East and Tobago West. And I wish to express gratitude to those who offer themselves for service to the people of Tobago. I wish to express gratitude. On the East, we had Mr. Anselm Richards. Come on, give him a hand. We have the very quiet gentleman, Mr. William Trim. We had former Assistant Commissioner of Police who one day while he was in khaki was running us down around James Park because we were protesting, only to transform from khaki to blue. And so we welcome Mr. William Nurse. We had Mr. Max James. And we had the only woman to offer herself, who is also the chairman of this beautiful party, Miss Anne Natasha II. In Tobago West, we first started with 2 prospects, and that evolved into 4. The first 2 prospects we had were Mr. Barry Nelson, who you heard from, retired public servant. And Mr. Nelson, Tobagonians are asking who will go down for me check now. but we are certain that there are other well-serving public servants within the space. We also had one of our deputy political leaders, Mr. Trevor Williamson James, also offering himself. And then, as it evolved, we had Mr. Bevan Dennis out of Mason Hall that offered himself and was screened. And finally, we have the gentleman who is now a candidate for Tobago West, Mr. Joel Sampson. This election is an important one. And Deputy Political Leader Dr. Bremner raised a salient point, that this may very well be Tobago's last opportunity to be in a strong negotiating position when it comes to Tobago's autonomy. You see, our political history has taught us one thing, and that one thing is that Tobago will never grow and Tobago will never get anything resembling autonomy until it votes against the PNM. In 1976, Tobago had to vote out the PNM and send 2 standalone MPs down to the parliament, who stood there in the face of mockery and jeering and laughing even from people in the public gallery, and presented a case for Tobago House of Assembly. And that's what led to Act 37 of 1980. Again, in 1996, when we wanted improvement, we had to stand alone when it was 17-17-2, and Tobago again voted for an indigenous Tobago team that went and negotiated the Tobago House of Assembly that we have today. Since then, we have had all sorts of varieties. And I'm saying, Tobago, we have an opportunity again to send 2 people to the parliament whose focus is not a cabinet, but whose focus is Tobago's freedom, whose focus is not on a big position, but whose focus is on the well-being of the people of Tobago. I want to tell you that from where we stand, cabinet is for fine china. Cabinet is where you place your granny's best china and you don't ever use it. You wash it for Christmas and you put them back. Our responsibility, our purpose is to go there and to negotiate for Tobago a better autonomy bill than the ones we saw back in 2013 and the last year. Our job is to ensure that Tobago gets the freedom, that right to self-determination. Because from where I stand, I will ignore disrespect. Call me what you want. Ignore me if you want. But you see the disrespect to the people of Tobago and the institution that is the Tobago House of Assembly, that I will not accept. And therefore, the job for Mr. Sampson and for Mr. Thomas is to go to the parliament and to ensure that every bit of Tobago's space is given over to the Tobago House of Assembly for management. And that's both our physical and economic space. They have to go to the parliament and to say to their colleagues in the parliament, and I'm speaking it into being. And you know, when I speak it into being, it comes to pass. They have to go to the parliament and say to them in the parliament that here we have a group of people who have been treated as second-class citizens since the time Tobago was placed in a forced and arranged marriage with Trinidad, and the time for such historical injustice to stop has come. This year, the Tobago House of Assembly is actually celebrating 200 years of the establishment of a parliament in Tobago. It is the oldest parliament in the country. And many of you don't understand what that means. It meant that at one time Tobago even had its own Chief Justice and Commissioner of Police and its own money. And that was broken apart, tossed away by people all the way out in Westminster, London, and we were made ward of Trinidad. I am saying we are not a ward of anybody. Because when I look to Port of Spain, all I see there is a madhouse. Crazy people ward. But I'm sending 2 people there to set it straight. Because we have Tobago's business to mind. I'm sending them down because it cannot be that one day Caribbean Airlines will decide that you will get 24 flights weekly, and post-COVID you will wake up and say, I could only give you half of that and I don't care how you feel. I want people in cabinet who will stand up and say, Tobago deserves more flights between the both islands from Caribbean Airlines. And Caribbean Airlines is a central government-owned and operated institution. We are sending people to Trinidad to ensure that our public servants or public officers receive a living wage. We demonstrated as an assembly within our first year in office a desire to ensure that all of our people enjoy living wages. And that's why without prompt, without it being in the appropriation bill, we decided to raise the salaries and improve the terms and conditions for workers in CPEP and URP to the point where they were remunerated more than their colleagues in Trinidad. If the THA had the powers, then our public servants in Tobago will not be working on 2013 salaries. They are going to the parliament to treat with that. They are going there to ensure that we can finally, through the autonomy bills for Tobago, ensure that Tobagonians have more control over the public service. There is no reason why a teacher needing leave or special leave of any kind have to apply and wait on somebody in Trinidad to say yes or no. And sometimes years elapse before they can get a response. That is in effect Tobagonians living as second-class citizens. We are sending them to Trinidad to treat with the issue of national security. It is no secret that last year we experienced our most murderous year. And we are fighting tooth and nail to ensure that Tobago does not become like the rest of this region, and that we keep our levels of violent crime under control. But how do we do that when Tobago will never get a boat for Coast Guard men and women? How can we do that when our fisher folk, when they are lost at sea, have to depend on villagers to get gas, go out in the middle of the night and rescue them? In fact, I could tell you the last set that were lost at sea from my village in Palatuvere, we had to go and get fuel, send men 30 miles off Castara to pick them up from some Venezuelan fishermen who rescued them. Meanwhile, our coast guards were nowhere to be found because they had no apparatus, no vessels to work with. That's a central government problem. They have a 6th schedule responsibility. And so I wonder what happens in cabinet meetings. Do they just eat roti and eat doubles and drink solo and just have a good time? Where is the care for the people of this country? Who is really there advocating on our behalf? And so the issues in national security must fix. And when we look at national security budget over the last 10 years, you could count on one hand the amounts spent from development spend from the Ministry of National Security in Tobago when compared to Trinidad. And so when they tell you, we're giving you X, but the rest will be spent by ministries in Tobago, that is a lie. That is a lie. And as a Tobago House of Assembly, we spend millions every single month for vehicles, for accommodation, for bed, for fridge, for stove, for all manner of apparatus for national security, which is not a function of the Tobago House of Assembly. We're sending you, Thomas and Samson, to Port of Spain to treat with that. We are sending you because that matter with the Registrar General's office must be returned to what it was. It is because of an incalcitrant Registrar General who insists on recolonizing Tobago why your bird paper can't be managed by somebody on island. Why they must send people up from Trinidad every week to manage our work. That, in my mind, brothers and sisters, was facilitated by a cabinet who changed the policy and ensured that Tobagonians had to suffer for a bird paper. You had your dead and couldn't bury your dead because you have to wait. In one instance, there was an error on the death paper or the death certificate as we call it. And you know what the gentleman was told? If you want to bury your father quick, you have to go down to Trinidad to get it changed. But you can apply here and wait 6 weeks to get it changed. That is an insult to our people. And when we send you Samson and Thomas to Port of Spain, you're not going down there to look nice. You ain't going down there to be amazed by tall buildings and to look like never see come see. We are sending you down to the Red House to mind our business and to stand up for the people of Tobago. We are sending you to Port of Spain because what happened, what transpired with the construction of the airport should never happen again. You see, that project started before we came into office, and the preceding Tobago House of Assembly signed away all of your rights to their colleagues in Port of Spain, and that's why it's a dangerous thing, putting them in charge of the THA and putting them also in charge of your business in Port of Spain. So they could come and boast that we saved $46 million, and when I drive around Shervan and Cove, the poor people can't even finish their houses to move back in their homes. So you came, you dig out the navel string of all the people that were born in that area. You put them out. And today they are struggling to make a living, struggling to get back in their homes. And you are proud. Yes, we are happy for the airport, but we say people must be treated with respect and dignity. And this is the only party that will treat you as such. Yeah! As a matter of fact, it's because we believe in your dignity why we decided not to charge you $50 a square foot for the land. Because that is what the former wicked THA was charging. It is now $15 a square foot. But more than that, you know what we have done? The new policy is whatever you have, you pay. And you can pay for it until you're dead and until your children die. You could pay for it in an intergenerational loan format. In other words, if all you have is $100 to pay for the land, pay the $100 every month until you die, until you finish paying for it. But the land is yours to go and build. That is what this caring Tobago House of Assembly did. And did that because of the advocacy of your area representative, Joel Samson. You are going to Port of Spain because this country has a massive forex issue. That's not central government. As a matter of fact, over the last 10 years, the economy of Trinidad and Tobago shrunk by at least 17%. Over the last 10 years, we have the slowest growth rate in the entire Caribbean region. And when you trying to buy a little thing online from Shein or Amazon, or Temu, when you trying to make a little vacation, you have to suffer for 200 US. You have to beg, you have to go on the black market to get it. Meanwhile, their friends are getting all the US they want. And I'm sending both of you to Port of Spain to end that oppressive forex regime that the central bank is now employing. You have to deal with that. We're sending you to Port of Spain Because you see with town and country planning that they have down there, they don't want to set up. We want it back in Tobago within your first month in office as members of parliament for Tobago East and West. We're sending you to Port of Spain because Tobagonians with sense must be members of the EMA board. We are sending you to Port of Spain because the DRC ruling must be revised. Because when it was first given, Tobago was just around 4% of the national population. Now we are just over 5% of the national population. And so the days of 4.03% must come to an end, and it must start at 5.8%. We are sending you to Port of Spain to deal with that. We are sending you to Port of Spain because you have to ensure that we have proper port development. You see, Secretary James took the time and did all of the studies, looked at the environmental studies, looked at wave action, did the engineering, did all the modeling for the development of a port in Scarborough. I dutifully printed every page out, sent it to the Prime Minister, sent it to his cabinet ministers, only for the Prime Minister to show up in Mason Hall to say that he's only supporting the Marriott project in Tobago and that's it. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, we know that you love your 1%ers and you will only support it if your 1%ers are in control of it. But this Tobago belongs to all of us. And you might have been Tobagonian by birth, B-I-R-T-H, but you have clearly become a Trini by boat, B-O-A-T. And so we will lift that anchor and sail you and your boat back to Trinidad because the port development in Scarborough must happen. And allow me to address the issue of Sanders in short. The people of Tobago never had a problem with Sanders or any branded hotel whatsoever. And it is unfair to posit in the public space as though Tobagonians rejected Sanders for Sanders. That is untrue. Tobagonians rejected the Sanders project because it was undemocratic. It did not make proper economic sense, that MOU that was signed by the current MP for Tobago West. And it did not meet the environmental best practices or standards that we wanted. And so we are very much open to negotiating with Sanders, Four Seasons, any brand name hotel from anywhere to ensure that they meet the standard required by the people of Tobago. And for you to sit in Port of Spain and decide for us, this is what you want. I am saying to you, there is a Tobago House of Assembly. And in the 5th schedule is tourism. And if it is a matter relative to tourism, it starts and ends with the Tobago House of Assembly, not your 1% Prime Minister that you left behind. I understand fully the Prime Minister's dilemma. Because the Prime Minister seldom wins in Tobago. So I understand his innate hatred for our people. Because you see, in 1981, Ogis Bossy Throat. In 1986, he come back and Sister Pam Bossy Throat. And then even when he went up against the now deceased Patrick Manning in his own party, Tobagonians did not support him. And then when it came to the elections of 2021, both of them, Tobagonians did not support him. So I understand his dilemma. He seldom gets support from us. And that's because he sometimes does not see himself as one of us. And if you don't see yourself as one of us, then you are not going to use us for your personal benefits whatsoever. Tobago will be developed for all Tobagonians without regard for what color jerseys they are going to wear in this political season. And so, MPs for Tobago East and West, over the next 35 days, We have a hard task ahead. We have to re-educate every Tobagonian. I want you to know that elections are not won with big fancy truck. It's not won with bright lights. It's not won by who have the most speaker cars on the road. It's not won by who is the loudest. This is the season to go knocking on every door and to spread the gospel of Tobago first and foremost. To spread the gospel that Tobago's future is well anchored. And to rest assured the fears of Tobagonians that they can realize their dream for Tobago becoming the greatest little island on the planet. I want to tell you that just as you are here in your hundreds this evening, because we first placed out 700 chairs, thinking it's a convention of just members, and we have gone into the thousands. People are outside, the ACs are working in here, and I'm thankful that the candidate for Tobago East is no longer in the fire service, so he no longer has the authority to shut us down and to lock the door. But just as you are here in your numbers, you have a duty to go out and bring one, bring two, bring three, bring every single one to the polls. Over the next 35 days, we are going to talk about all of those issues I have mentioned and more, and talk about them in greater detail. You have been introduced to the candidates for East and West, and now it will be time for us to discuss the real issues. This campaign is not one of personality. This campaign is not for who look good and who look good. This campaign is not one for gender. This campaign is not one for young or old, but this is a campaign for the people of Tobago. End of story. It's your business that we are going to discuss. And some time ago, the Prime Minister in his frustration with me said, in other words, that he is a big dog in a big kennel. But I have an interesting analogy in my head. Because you see, I came from Speyside, where we have small kennels and small dogs. But you can't come in my yard in Speyside because them dogs bad. And them dogs will deal with you. Now I come in the people residence, we have big dogs and they're just fluffy and playful. I wish to say, Mr. Prime Minister, former, it is not the size of the dog, but it is the size of the bags, the size of the bag that matters. So you remain there with your big dog and your big kennel. We will stay as small dogs in our small kennels, but we know that the size of our bite is bigger than the little, any big fluffy dog you have there that just playful. Tobago, this is going to be an interesting season. Tobago, this is going to be a hard fight. Freedom is never ever given. Freedom has to be won. It has to be fought for. And if you think about the children of Israel, they didn't just get to leave Egypt. They had to fight for it. Moses had to fight for it. And there was a juncture that Moses sent forth Joshua and Caleb into the promised land. This evening, we are sending forth Mr. David Thomas and Mr. Joel Sampson down into Port of Spain. They have surveyed the land, and they have said that the land is overflowing with milk and honey. While the others came back with a bad report, they returned with a good report. And we are ready to move Tobago to the next level. I wish to urge you young people, get in tune with the issues and less in tune with the music. Get in tune with the information and less in tune with propaganda and fake pages. Get in tune with what is real and out of tune with what is fake. Because I am certain that when Tobagonians stand together, Tobago always win. And we are standing together in the same shade of blue. that DSC had in 1976. The same shade of blue that is the dominant color in the Tobago House of Assembly emblems. The same shade of blue that is used by United Nations. We stand on all of those platforms to remind all and sundry that Tobago is still in the fight, and that we will not be handing this over to a government and to a party that does not care about our interests. By design, that's how it was designed. We are comforted in the fact that we have two good men to lead us in this charge. Now is a good time, executive council members and assistant secretaries, executive of the party, for all of us to walk and lose some weight. Now is a good time to throw off the married men bellies and to walk the hills and the valleys in ensuring that the gospel of change and progress is preached everywhere. Now is a good time. Now is a good time for us to remind all that Tobago can do it. Stop doubting yourself. Stop believing less for yourself. Stop believing that you can't when in fact you can. Your greatest fear is that you are more powerful beyond measure, and not that you are inadequate. Let no one despise you. Let no one insult you. Let no one treat you less than. Let no one relegate you to some animal. Let no one despise your feelings, because they stand for something. Stand for something in this season. Stand for something. Stand up for something in this season. Stand up for Tobago. Let Tobago be that thing that you stand for and that you campaign on. And together, on the night of April 28th, we will be gathered in our large numbers, both in Roxborough and in Scarborough, because we are going to celebrate our victory, and we are going to celebrate getting that negotiating power that we are voting for. We're not just voting to send people there. We are voting because we are very mindful that if we take away the two Tobago seats, there is just one seat difference between the two major parties in Port of Spain. We are voting to negotiate on our terms, not on their terms. That's why you're voting. That's why you must vote for this party, the only structured indigenous party on the island. I dare any of the other indigenous parties on the island to show you the constitution, show you the executive, show you the structure. Not one of them have a structure. Not one of them have a proper executive. But yet they want to lead in this democracy. We are the only trustworthy party on the ballot paper. It is an anchor, and temporarily we will lift the anchor so that the ship could go sailing to the next port. And we will be looking forward on the morning of the 29th of April, Tuesday morning, dropping off in Port of Spain from this ship, Brother David Tomo Thomas, and coming from the west, Brother Joel Sampson, both men with only biblical names, if you may add. And we look forward to the fight that you will put up on our behalf. Fear not, don't look at the size. God watches not on the size, but the bigness of the heart. The bigness of the heart does always win in the fight. We ain't afraid no bully whatsoever. None whatsoever. So if bully 1 give over office to bully number 2, we will treat with both of them accordingly. But at the end of the day, Tobago must come first and foremost. I wish to thank you all for your support, because there are days that it feels like we are alone. There are days when the people you elect to fight for you feel like they are standing there alone. There are days when you are staring down the enemy in the face and wondering, who is with me? But your presence this evening says that you have not gone anywhere. and that you have remained solid, secured in this fight. And we appreciate you and we love you for that. We love that you have not been swayed by fake news, by propaganda, by bacchanal, by police, by nothing whatsoever. And that you continue to stand your ground on behalf of the people of Tobago. We have done this before. We stood in great numbers before. My father always tells me the story of getting his first job and expecting his first salary and having to wait endlessly because a wicked Williams decided to close down the ministry in Tobago and Tobagonians could not get paid. We were here before. We were here before. And here we are again. And just as we beat them then, we will beat them now. Just as we defeated them then, we will defeat them now. Because we are certain of this fact, that whomever God leads, success will follow. And we know that He is leading us, success will follow us. I thank you for your support. I thank you for standing with Joel and David. And we will work our machinery, get everything in a gear, ready bright and early on Monday the 28th of April. And we are going to put our X next to the anchor, right along the anchor. It is the only symbol. The Bullifay out long time. And that comes like the foolish virgins whose lamps were not trimmed and prepared with oil. That Bullifay out long time. Right, gone, and still outside in the cold. The anchor is the only symbol we are considering. And if you look around, you will see the Balizé not even blossoming. They're not even flowering. Not in this season. There is a season and a time for everything under the sun. And this is not their season. This is the season to anchor down Tobago, resolute, ready for the war. And we shall be victorious. We shall win. We shall represent Tobago. And we shall get for Tobago the autonomy we so long deserve and have been begging for. Thank you, Tobago. I love you, TPP family. God's richest blessings to all of you.
Tobago People's Party, come rally round the blue, the rest is history. Tobago People's Party, TPP.
Thank you, political leader. Thank you.